everyone. This is Kate Theobald. I'm posting my video reaction regarding the traditional college student, a smaller and smaller minority, and its implications for diversity and access institutions article by Delia Min. I do have some notes here, so if you see me looking down, I'm just glancing at my notes. I wanted to start with a quote that she actually opens with. I thought was so fantastic. I even posted it on my Facebook. I thought it applied to not just how we look at college students and what is the traditional college student, what is the majority of college students, but also how we look at many aspects of our culture. And I think that this could apply just in many areas, and I just found it fabulous. She says, what happens when a norm of behavior becomes the exception numerically, yet the social construction of that norm remains prominent? When such a situation occurs, those who do not conform to that norm tend to be marginalized, despite their existence as the collective majority. Conceptually, they become, in essence, a marginalized majority. I think this could apply to what is the typical family, what does, a typical college student look like, of course, which is what we're talking about here, but just so many other things that I thought it was just really timely and important to just acknowledge that particular quote. Of course, now I want to go into my example of marginalizing the majority and prioritizing the minority that I found to be really interesting. On page 4 of the article, she talks about age. She says that now well over a third, 38%, of college students are now aged 24 and over. So what we consider the traditional college student, that 18-year-old right out of high school who's going to move on to campus and be a full-time college student right after high school, is not actually what we're seeing as the vast majority. If at least a third are age 24 and over, then we have a pretty big population that is not that traditional college student. Granted, not the majority because it's only about 40%, but still a pretty large number. And in Georgia especially, I'm wondering what the new Move On When Ready program is doing to the traditional age, kind of on the other end of that spectrum, where we don't have the students age 24 and older, but we have those 9th through 12th graders who are taking advantage of basically free education at the college level through Move On When Ready. If you're not familiar with that program, I'm happy to have kind of an aside tangent discussion about that. It's really what I'm focused on in my job. But we're going to see more and more and more high school students starting in 9th grade dual enrolling, and that could change part of what we look at when we're looking at the age of the college student. It might bring our average back down towards the middle a little bit more, because we do have those older students and now these very, very young students on our campuses. But I'm wondering, now that that program has come into place after a year or two and it's really expected to take off, what is that going to do to our numbers? Just looking at the University of West Georgia, where I work, about 5 years or so ago, we had about 50 traditional dual enrolled students, and we're expecting over 500 next fall. So Move On Ready has definitely had an impact on the age of our students and what we think of as a traditional student and how we're serving those students. One thing that I thought about as I was reading through, especially when it came to the part of the article where they were discussing this book, Academically Adrift, which if you haven't had a chance to read it, definitely worth just a read on your own. At least read the introduction, check it out. I found it to be really fascinating. But when I was reading it, I didn't even notice what the author points out here, that we are ignoring the marginalized majority in that text, because it's really focused on the traditional college student. What are the problems that the traditional college student is facing? What has changed the landscape of education for that student type? And totally ignoring, technical colleges, two-year colleges, and that large population of students. So I wrote down a question, kind of playing devil's advocate here, just to get some of the discussion going, see what everybody thinks on this. But what I wrote down in my notes was, is it bad to have community colleges for primarily non-traditional students and four-year institutions for primarily traditional students? Traditional meaning, looking at the preparedness level, looking at access as far as being able to go part-time, all the reasons that somebody might choose a community college. What does it do if we have one type of institution serving one population, another type of institution serving another population, to perpetuate the marginalized majority, to ignore that population, to serve to further the problem? Is it bad to have institutions that are experts in serving their regular population? Should all institutions become all-inclusive? Why or why not? I think that's interesting. And I think that a lot of that can also reflect back on our relationship between K-12 and higher education, especially when we're looking at students who are underprepared the University of West Georgia just stopped a couple of years ago offering like that Math 98, Math 99, English 99, those remedial courses, and said, you know what, go to West Georgia Tech, get those credits, get prepared, and then come into West Georgia. So we're still serving our, what we think of as traditional population in that sense, but in so many other ways, our student body is not reflective of what has traditionally been thought of as that typical college student. I'm just wondering, what would it do if we had different institutions serving different student types? Would that elevate one type of institution and take the other down in terms of how employers look at the students there? Just kind of wanting to know your thoughts. Of course, I think that, students should be able to access the type of institution that is best for them. But is it so bad to be an expert in one area? Just kind of to throw that out to get the discussion going on that. We had 5 minutes. I see that I'm now almost at 6. I guess there's so much in this article I feel like I could talk about. I'm interested to see everybody else's videos and to really see what you guys think and get into the discussion. Thanks.